The guys that didn't come home are the heroes.
On each one of these memorials, it's the story behind the story.
We're honoring the service, the sacrifice, and we're honoring a gift that they've given us.
Hello and welcome to Discover Wisconsin.
For those of us who have never served, it is impossible to truly understand the experiences of our military veterans. And while we can never fully repay them for their sacrifices, we can pay tribute to them. Here in Wisconsin, there are many places dedicated to preserving and honoring our state's military history and its heroes. The Military Veterans Museum and Education Center in Oshkosh began with 5 World War II veterans and their own personal artifacts. Today, its ever-growing collection includes relics and displays from World War I to the present day.
Our mission is to honor our military's history through education and preservation. And it's our job to continue their legacy and continue their story on what they did for serving our country.
When visitors come to the museum nowadays, they'll get to see specialized exhibits concerning things like the Medal of Honor. We have a lot of items related to Pearl Harbor, including an original piece of the USS Arizona. They'll see uniforms to small arms to large arms and everything in between.
The museum is also home to the largest exhibit of military vehicles in the state.
We have over 22 vehicles in our collection, ranging from World War II up to the Gulf War. Virtually all of our vehicles are operational, and we do take them out for outside display.
Along with parades and other outreach events, the motor pool is used every year at the World War II encampment at EAA's AirVenture. Using mostly original equipment, reenactors show what life was like for soldiers during the war. The vehicles are kept in working condition by a group of dedicated volunteers who tackle everything from vehicle tune-ups to total rebuilds.
It's very rewarding work to work on these vehicles. Just getting things working again, troubleshooting, and we have a lot of veterans come here and look at a vehicle, and it brings back a lot of memories of them of their service life.
My name is Roger Blink. I served in the 359th Transportation Company in Vietnam as the 3rd driver of the gun truck Brutus. The mission of the 359th Transportation Company in Vietnam was to haul fuel in and around the Central Highlands up to the Cambodian-Laotian border. The enemy liked to attack the tankers simply because when one of these things burned, it was quite the spectacle. Brutus came into play guarding these convoys. Brutus was in the thick of the fighting. Many of the guys that served on Brutus received Purple Hearts, Bronze Stars, and Silver Stars. So because of that, Brutus is deemed to be one of the most highly decorated gun trucks in Vietnam.
Years after he came home, Roger came up with the idea to build a replica of Brutus in honor of the men he served with in Vietnam. With help from volunteers at the Military Veterans Museum, an exact replica was built and added to the museum's motor pool in 2016.
I'm so happy to have this display at the Military Veterans Museum simply because the truck drivers of the Vietnam War basically go unheralded. The real mission of this display is to immortalize the ones we lost. There are 14 guys from the 359th that did not make it home. So those are our heroes. I look at that and I see a lot of sacrifice. It's something that you will always remember. It never goes away.
Learn more about the stories at the Military Veterans Museum at discoverwisconsin.com. Coming up next, the military tributes at EAA's AirVenture. We'll be right back. Discover Wisconsin is back, visiting military tributes across the state. With chapters all around the world, the Experimental Aircraft Association, EAA for short, unites pilots, history buffs, and aviation enthusiasts. And the EAA Aviation Museum in Oshkosh celebrates pioneers in aviation and the history of flight.
We're very proud to have the privilege of being voted one of the 20 best aviation collections by CNN. What distinguishes this collection is the emphasis on home-built aircraft, on experimentation, on innovation. Everything that you see in this museum is a product of somebody's trial and overcoming adversity. The spirit of aviation is really evident throughout the museum. It's important to preserve our military history in the museum because some of the greatest innovations in aviation have been made through military advancements. These are the exhibits that show us how advancements have been made and how they were used in the military in fascinating ways.
The past, present, and future of flight come together every year at the world's greatest aviation celebration, AirVenture. Tributes to the military are everywhere at AirVenture. Most notably, the War Birds, fighter jets, bombers, and other historic airplanes used in all the major conflicts of the 20th century. Once the aircraft are back on the ground, visitors can take a closer look at these planes, as well as other military aviation legends.
I love that when we came over to this part of EAA, it was all about that. It was about the veteran aviation and the stories involved. This helicopter looks like it's been around a while.
Yes, it sure has. A couple of our tails in the squadron have been flying since Vietnam. The history is there. For the veterans, it's just cool to see, you know, thousands of people come up to you and be like, hey, I've rode in this, or I flew in this, I was a pilot in this.
Why is it important to you that the general public gets to see what you do or kind of experience it more up close and personal?
They don't really get to see what we do on a day-to-day basis. I think it's very important so we can just talk to them, hey, we're human beings as well, and hey, this is exactly what we do and what we're looking for, and just exposing them to the Air Force, exposing them to aviation in general.
Every plane and person at AirVenture has a story, and it's likely you'll run into some truly incredible individuals. I was lucky enough to meet James Harvey, one of the original Tuskegee Airmen, the first African-American military aviators who fought in World War II.
Tuskegee Airmen were the best fighter group in the Army Air Corps and the United States Air Force, bar none.
The Tuskegee Airmen overcame racism and segregation to become one of the most celebrated squadrons in the U.S. Air Force.
It started off very bad. We weren't supposed to be able to do anything. We couldn't think quick. We couldn't do anything. And we proved them wrong. We proved that we were the best at whatever we did.
Learn more about military tributes across the state at discoverwisconsin.com. Next, we're traveling to a place of healing and hope for veterans. We'll be right back. We're exploring Wisconsin's military tributes today on Discover Wisconsin. Along Highway 10 in Neillsville, the High Ground Veterans Memorial Park seems to rise up from the rolling hills of the region.
The High Ground is located on 150 acres. It has tributes and memorials from World War I all the way to the present day. It allows veterans, their families, and the public to come and see memorials, see the tributes, but it also has events that help veterans throughout the year. When you come back from war, you feel isolated. But in order for us to help veterans heal we need to have a special place for them where they can heal. We have the resources to take that first step in that healing process. And by doing that, then we can start the reintegration process. And that is so important to getting the veterans back into society.
To raise awareness for its veterans programs and to honor those who have served, the High Ground hosts a number of events throughout the year, including the annual Ride to Remember motorcycle rally. And people from all over the state embark on a multi-day bike trip to the High Ground during the Heroes Ride, which honors the Wisconsin soldiers who lost their lives in all conflicts from Vietnam to the present day. Some of the most moving tributes at the High Ground are the legacy stones, which cement a veteran's service and sacrifice into a permanent memorial. You'll find Colonel Mike Jason's name on that walkway, along with his best friend who was killed in Iraq in 2004.
To really put in stone our friendship, our bond, and our legacy together in a place like this was just an amazing bookend to a long and proud career that really began at the side of Hans Kurth. The name itself has meaning. When soldiers part in a tactical situation on a battlefield, often we would say to each other, I'll see you on the high ground, because the high ground on the battlefield is sort of the end. It's the objective. It's where you finish when you win. That's where you want to meet your buddies when it's over. It's a place of peace and rest. Long after we're all gone, it'll be here.
So I had the great honor and privilege of witnessing my very first Legacy Stone ceremony. And I looked back up at the families and just kind of seeing the looks on their faces when you placed the stone where it was going to live permanently.
It's really rewarding beyond words. And it gives them a chance to say thank you in a very permanent way.
I mean, I think it's really important for veterans and non-veterans to come here and really attempt to understand. It's hard for me to imagine just how many people raised their hand and said, yes, I'll go do this. I'll write that blank check. That's incredible.
I want people to recognize this as a place where our veterans and their families can come and be safe and seek tranquility and maybe even a measure of self-forgiveness. That may be a strange thing to say, but I think if you've carried a rifle and fired at another human being, there has to be an element of that. They can take that burden and they can lay it in the grass and they can walk away from it and they never have to shoulder it alone again. This place has a magic unlike any place I've ever been. You have to experience the high ground to really walk away with that part of it in your heart that's going to stay with you, and it will.
Share your own stories and tributes with us on any of our social media channels. Coming up, Wisconsin is home to one of the premier military air bases in the country, and you've probably driven right past it. Find out where next. We're visiting military tributes across the state today on Discover Wisconsin. Just off I-94 south of Tomah is the small village of Camp Douglas, a community with a long and proud military history thanks to its proximity to Volk Field Air National Guard Base just across the highway.
Volk Field is one of 3 standalone military air bases in the Air National Guard. The Wisconsin National Guard has been training right here for over 130 years. Following World War II, the Air National Guard organized field training sites, and this was one of the first 8 field training sites created in the nation. So twice a year we put on this exercise called Northern Lightning, and we train forces from all over the country in a high-end tactical exercise doing a full-up wartime scenario that would challenge them in a way that maybe they'd never seen before.
Camp Douglas and Volkfield are very much intertwined. A lot of the folks who live here are tied to Volkfield in one way or another. So Camp Douglas is a military community to its core, and that is on full display during Armed Forces Day.
Armed Forces Days honors those that are currently serving in the armed forces. It always falls that first Saturday prior to Memorial Day weekend. The calendared holiday is just one day, and when it comes to the village of Camp Douglas, because we have Volkfield as our neighbor, we celebrate it for 3 days.
The Armed Forces Day celebration takes over Camp Douglas all weekend long with events like a parade, color run, a bluff mutter obstacle course, and a seriously impressive concert lineup featuring some of the biggest names in country music.
You know, country music, military, we do a lot of stuff together. And I love that jointness. I think it's just the small town, down home kind of people.
The concert lineup brings thousands of people to this tiny village and gives local musicians a chance to share their music with the masses. But for U.S. Army veteran Kyle Flatten, music is more than just entertainment. It's a lifeline.
I had returned home from my second deployment early in 2010, and some mental health post-war issues really started to surface. I became alcoholic really fast. The mistake I made is I didn't get help when I needed to right away.
Kyle's life continued down a difficult path until he sought treatment at the VA. It was there he rediscovered his love of music.
Songwriting helps me cope, and I think this applies to anybody that does any type of artistry. It provides you a safe way to approach your feelings, and it provides you a way to explore your feelings in ways you haven't before. To be able to perform at this event, I'm humbled beyond words. My whole mission is about mental health awareness and giving back and helping veterans. So I get to play an event strictly geared at doing just that.
I don't think you're going to find a relationship as strong as Camp Douglas and Volkfield. I think because we are such a small town, it kind of just gives you a big sense of community pride. And it gives us the opportunity to pretty much bring that whole concept together and celebrate unified with this particular holiday.
Those soldiers and airmen come from the community in which they live. And that's the tie that binds the community to the military. So the celebration of Armed Forces Day in this unique little town is actually a small snapshot of what it's like here to be a part of the Guard.
I think it is so important to celebrate our military, to really understand the sacrifices that they've made. There are so many Americans here, and specifically Wisconsinites, who have been so willing to sacrifice so much for our country. The least we can do is attend these museums, go to these festivals, and just pay tribute to them in the best ways that we know how. Stream Discover Wisconsin anywhere, anytime. Continue the adventure on Apple TV, Amazon Fire, Roku, Smart TV, Chromecast, and discoverwisconsin.com.